121.5 pounds, 22-2 with 15 knockouts. And Stark comes from Brooklyn, where he claimed 3 New York Golden Gloves championships. Got off to a good start and created a buzz in his career. Then he suffered back-to-back losses in 07. The first was to Mike Oliver, a controversial 12-round decision. That's the common opponent who Escalante recently KO'd. He has rebounded with 4 straight wins. We are here in Chicago, home to so many legendary fights through the years. And Teddy has the fight plan, sponsored by AutoZone.
Every once in a while, an event takes place that changes the course in history. One took place here at Soldier Field in 1927 during the Jack Dempsey-Gene Tunney heavyweight title fight. It was called the long count. On tonight's main event, I don't think there's going to be a long count, but both fighters will be looking to administer a 10 count to each other. I'm going to play Escalante, so I was going to play Stark. Escalante has the best chance of making that happen. He is the banger in this fight. Now, Stark's going to have to box a little bit. He's going to use his jab, use his legs a little bit, go in and out. But he does leave himself open. He's been knocked out one time. He leads with a left hook, bang, wide open for the right hand. Also, he likes to jab and lay over on his right side, bang. He lays over on that side, in the alley path to the right hand, it can be over. Either way, if that happens, look for Escalante, no long count, but look for him to get a 10 count as he's standing over Stark. If Gary Stark is going to pull off the upset tonight, he's going to basically have to do the same thing that Gene Tunney did against Jack Dempsey, the Manassa Mauler, to win the heavyweight title. He's going to have to box. And how? Jab and legs. Escalante, just like Dempsey, he's the big banger here. Stark is going to use that jab and the legs, move a little bit and keep more balance. See, he has to be set to punch. He covers up a little bit, move to the side, pick spots, don't get greedy, in and out. Every once in a while, Escalante likes to pick up his trunks a little bit. That's when Stark can be a little aggressive, get out again. Remember, he's the boxer. If Stark can do that, forget about a count. It's going to be a 10-round decision, and the name on it, Gary Stark.
That's exactly the plan for the Brooklyn-born and raised Gary Stark, 29 years old. He had a quote recently where he said, in assessing Escalante, he said, Escalante's not a smart fighter. So they are scheduled for 10 rounds, and let's look at our Tecate ring experience, the comparison between Escalante and Stark. And you see Stark, a 1-year longer career, 24 fights. He's logged more total rounds. A knockout percentage favors Escalante, who Teddy said is the banger here, and will have those opportunities to land the right hand.
So I tell you, there's intangibles in fights. Sometimes we don't know about them. And there's one right here now. Stark doesn't only have to deal with the power of Escalante. We've talked about that already. But Stark was sick this week. He had the flu. I believe he might not be 100%. He may be weakened going into this bout.
Okay, you have your instructions in the dressing room. I want a good, clean, professional fight. Protect yourself at all times. Obey my commands. Touch gloves. Good luck.
Gerald Scott, the referee. Teddy, you see Gary Stark Jr. does that sideways pose, does not make any eye contact
and that's
with his opponent.
And that's okay. You know, some people get into that psychological battlefield before a punch is ever thrown, where you're staring at the guy, you're trying to get some kind of mental edge. And some fighters, Oscar De La Hoya, he was one. He used to look at the ceiling, used to look at the ground, or he used to look at the guy's chest. I believe in looking at the guy's chest, not getting into a pre-fight battle psychologically. And that's exactly what Stark was doing.
Did you ever specifically instruct your fighters or tell your fighters, hey, I don't want you doing this. Here's exactly what I want you doing?
Yeah, because one thing that I didn't want is I didn't want them starting to stare at the guy and then take away from there.
Oh, that would be worse.
Yeah, I didn't want, because that's like submission.
Exactly.
That's like losing a little bit of, you know, a little bit of a battle before the battle really starts. So right from the beginning, look at the guy's chest or do as Stark did. Look off to the side and make it very clear, I'm not looking away from you. This is just my way.
You just say whatever you do, commit to it and stick with it. So Escalante and Stark here, scheduled for 10.
Well, so far Stark has been doing just what we talked about in the fight plan. legs and jab. And that's what Gene Tunney did back in 1927 when he beat the power puncher, the terrific power puncher, Jack Dempsey. Right now, Stark keeping Escalante from using that power. And Escalante just missed with that right hand. We talked about that in the fight plan. Every once in a while, Stark will lead with a left hook right in front. You're not supposed to lead with hooks in front. And that right hand can find the spot.
Escalante just clipped him, just grazed him with that right hand. You can see an abrasion under the left eye of Stark.
I saw Stark about 3 weeks ago at a Golden Glove event, actually for my foundation on Staten Island. Gary Stark now lives on Staten Island. And he had a little cut on that left eye. Now, not where it is now. You just said it well. It's underneath. It's an abrasion underneath. But he had to cut a little higher. We'll see whether or not that opens up again. Because when I saw it 3 weeks ago, I asked him, you think that's going to be ready in 3 weeks? And obviously, as a fighter, and the attitude of a fighter that Stark has, he said, of course, that'll be fine.
But it was something that you noticed right away, and you called into question.
Yeah, because you could see that it was fresh. And I was wondering two things. One, will it heal in time? And two, could he do his regular sparring with it that way? Right now, Stark being aggressive, picking those spots to come forward with Escalante.
Stark just landed a pretty solid right hand moments ago.
Stark has to be careful that he doesn't give a spot for that power. One of the spots is if he goes straight back. You go straight back, Escalante, who likes to throw a little long, he can follow you. See, I like what Stark's doing. He came here with a good battle plan. He understood what he needed to do. Keep Escalante off bounds, be busy, put punches together. And again, use those feet to keep Escalante moving, turning, not set to punch.
Also landed a left hook in the final moments here of round number 1. Good opening round. Both men throwing 51 punches. Escalante landed 16. Stark landed 10. Escalante had the right hand early on, but Stark finished up that final minute fairly strong.
Both these fighters sparred together, so this isn't the first time they've been in the ring. They sparred together about 2 years ago, a great band. They were up there as spar partners for another fighter, getting another fighter ready, and according to Escalante, he felt he got the better of it.
No doubt about that. In talking to both men about those sparring sessions that took place out in Big Bear in California, Antonio's memories of them very much clear that he got the best of it, that the father of Gary Stark Jr., who's also his trainer and manager, was complaining throughout the sparring session, admonishing his son to throw the right hand. Stark dismisses the sparring session altogether, says it meant nothing. There's a right hand from Stark.
See, the big difference in this fight, to me, breaking it down, is Stark has to land many punches during the course of the fight to win this fight. And that means he has to take maybe many chances. Escalante doesn't have to take as many chances, doesn't have to land as many punches. One punch could do the trick since he has the power, where Stark really doesn't. Stark depends on fundamentals, on plenty of grit, plenty of heart, and on his mind. Picking the right fight plan like he's doing right now, trying to keep Escalante off balance. Escalante has some bad habits. You know, we talked about it in the fight plan, Joe. You know, one of them is he'll drop his hands every once in a while. He'll adjust his trunks. When there's some separation, and right now, Stark wants to get off those ropes. You watch Escalante. He'll shake those hands once in a while. He'll almost turn there. There he goes, dropping his hands, touching the trunks a little bit. You would hope that Stark's people did their homework and looked at tape, and they noticed the same thing I noticed. When he's dropping his hands to touch his trunks, or he's shaking those hands that Escalante likes to do. But when he does that, like that, he just shook his hands again. When he's doing that, that's a good spot for Stark to be aggressive. And Escalante is not set to punch.
Escalante has shown bursts of aggression here in this second round. Stark was telling him, come on, bring it, bring a little more. Pretty entertaining fight here early on.
It is an interesting fight. And it's a fight where the judges have to be on their P's and Q's, because there's going to be a lot of spots where the punch rate and a good right hand there by Stark is going to belong to Stark. You know, the punch numbers. But again, the telling punches they're going to belong to Escalante.
Stark did a fine job moments ago, slipping that punch and coming back, throwing 2 punches, the second of which landed against Escalante. Escalante very aggressive here throughout, though. There's a good right hand from Stark. Closing moments of round number 2, scheduled for 10 of our main event.
Have to worry about danger.
Joe and Teddy with you here in Chicago. Round 3 of our main event. It has been an evening of early knockouts here on Friday Night Fights. Nice to see a third round. We have 3 fights that went a combined 8 minutes and 48 seconds to start off the night. And this is shaping up to be a very entertaining one as Escalante lands another headshot here early on in round number 3 against Gary Stark.
But plenty of heart, plenty of grit from Stark, plenty of confidence. It's growing as the fight goes on. But if I'm in the corner with Stark, I'd probably whisper in his ear, hey, don't forget what you are. You're the boxer. You know, don't start looking like you're the big monster puncher in this fight and standing in front and get out of your identity, because we work too hard to remember what your identity is and to remember it throughout the night.
There have already been bursts of emotion from Stark so far here tonight, which does not fall in line with the game plan and strategy that you think he should put forth. And a big sweeping left hand from Escalante for Stark.
And that's what I was talking about.
Referee Gerald Scott demanding he gets to a neutral corner, and that gives extra time to Gary Stark Jr. On a night when you're talking Tony Dempsey, it happens right there. Oh, boy! What a shot!
Stark is gone. And that's exactly what I was talking about. One man had the eraser, the other man did not.
What a statement from Antonio Escalante! How do you do? Gary Stark Jr. just flattened here in round number 3.
And that's why I said I would whisper in the ear of Stark. And you could see it. You see him getting a little cocky. You could see him forgetting that he was not the puncher. He was the boxer. He was the guy who was going to have to fight the perfect fight. Escalante could afford to make mistakes, as we said early, and still win the fight. Stark could not afford to make mistakes. And that's why I said a little whisper in his ear before he came out and say, hey, do not forget, you're not the slugger. He forgot for a moment, and in boxing, that's all it takes.
Let's show you the first knockdown as Escalante went hunting for Stark from long range.
And again, Stark doesn't have his right hand up. The left hook, the right hand goes out in front. The left hook goes behind and catches Stark going back.
And
again,
here's the second knockdown.
And the right hand behind that left hook for the finishing touch. And again, the left hook freezes him. The right hand makes sure that the referee does not have to let him continue. The referee does not have to finish the count.
Antonio Escalante, who was viewed as a top prospect and then had that stumble, that shocking, stunning upset in 07 to Pastrana when Mauricio Pastrana was well past his prime, now has his career right where he wants it to be. He's on a roll, 6 in a row, and showing the power that makes him such an exciting fighter to watch. Just 23 years old, and a great performance here tonight against Stark Jr., who exits this ring now after bouncing back in those losses he had in 07, had won 4 straight. Devastating now at this stage of his career.
They need to get him to the locker room. He's going after some fans that are booing him, and this is where his corner is not there. We don't know why his corner is not there right now, but this is where the corner needs to get him back to the dressing room. He's distraught. You know, he's emotional. His career may have just flashed in front of him, and obviously the best thing to do is right there, put an arm around him and take him to his locker room.
Well, you've been in that spot before, Teddy. You've been the trainer of a fighter who's been at that critical stage of his career, and he gets knocked out. He gets stopped, and the whole night just caves in on him. What do you say to the guy?
Well, the first thing you do is you get him back into the locker room, and you're with him. You let them sit down for a moment. And you tell them that we will have time to talk about this another time. You don't go into decisions for his career at that moment. After something like that, you just support him.
And meanwhile, the celebration will be starting for Antonio Escalante, and it begins with the official particulars from Thomas Schreiber.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the official time, 1 minute 31 seconds of round number 3. Your winner by way of knockout, de Juárez, Mexico, Antonio Escalante.
Antonio Escalante now moves his mark to 19-2. This is how it went down in round number 3. The left hand started it, the right hand finishes it. The knockout victory, and we will talk to Escalante ringside when we return to Friday Night Fights. Knockdowns.
Well, you know, first I was expecting I was expecting a little bit more from Gary Starks. I was expecting for him. I mean, right there, the first rounds was kind of awkward because he started boxing me a little bit. And then I noticed that the left hook was going in. You know, I kind of getting in. I mean, that's one of my punches. I've said it before. If I can get you, I will knock you out. I got the power to knock anybody out, and if I get you, I will knock you out.
I think you noticed that he was pulling straight back. I think that's what you noticed.
Right.
Was there anything, you've sparred with him 2 years ago up in Big Bear, was there anything from those sparring sessions that A, gave you confidence that this would happen, and B, gave you a thought that the left hook would be the punch?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily the left hook, but the pressure. I noticed when we sparred like 3 years ago, I noticed that he couldn't take pressure. You know, that's why the first 2 rounds he started boxing me around, and that was a little bit awkward. I was expecting for him to throw and move out, but he did good the first 2 rounds. But it did help, you know, that we sparred 3 years ago, and I kind of remember that he couldn't take the pressure, and that's what I did. Kind of put a little bit of pressure and get him with a surprise.
Antonio, I had the feeling that the first 2 rounds I gave to Stark, and I think you did too, probably. You thought he might have outboxed you a little bit. But when you have that eraser in your gloves, you don't panic. You know that it just takes a punch to turn the fight around.
Of course.
But in my mind, maybe those first 2 rounds for Stark really was his undoing, because I think he got a little bit cocky and a little bit too confident and started standing in front of you more than he probably should have.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, he kind of.
Did you let him lose those rounds just to get him over? Are you that smart?
Not really. You know, I was expecting. I mean, the first 2 rounds, I was surprised. You know, he was boxing me out. It was like, oh man, and I knew I was losing the fight, but I knew it would change differently. You know, I adapt to styles. I kind of follow you around, and then I go around moving around. If moving around doesn't work, then I will attack. If nothing works, throw any punches.
It doesn't hurt that you have a little dynamite
Right.
in your gloves either.
Antonio, was he jawing with you at one point, actually telling you to bring it on and to engage in that style of fight?
He was, but I think it was out of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was feeling my punch, and I think it was frustrated. He was feeling my punch, and that's what made for him to make the biggest mistake. You know, don't lose your head in the ring because you'll lose the fight.
Give us a glimpse of your future plans as you see them right now.
Well, you know, right now I gotta talk to my team. I don't want to rush things to fighting for the world title already. You know, I want to take things step by step. I want to be 100% for that. When I fight for that world title, it's for sure, and I get that title and bring it and defend it 3 or 4 times, whatever many times I have to defend it, and go 100% for sure.
You're starting to sound like Oscar De La Hoya.
Really?
Do you hang out with that?
He sometimes talks to me, but
Antonio, congratulations. Very impressive work tonight. The 3rd round knockout of Gary Stark Jr. One more look at the fireworks in the 3rd round. Big sweeping right hand finishes it off. Antonio Escalante now 19-2 with 13 knockouts. He's won 6 straight. Back to Brian Kenny in the studio.